Welcome to J is for Justice podcast. If live breaking news and following true crime is your thing, then please consider subscribing to my channel. And if you like what you see in my videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to a special live stream at night, 9 p.m. What are we doing? Well, we have news. We have a lot of news, actually. We have an update on what we went over earlier, the stabbings in Newton, Massachusetts. We have an update. They have an arrest already. Hooray for law enforcement, right? Hear, hear to law enforcement. And we also have a Grady Judd update. This is a crazy one. I didn't put this in the description because I wasn't going to cover it, but I think we need to. Grady Judd did a huge bust today. And when I say huge, I mean huge. And it's a whole family, and it's the Rogers family. And that's no joke. So it's the Rogers family, and he calls the dad Pop Rogers. I'm not joking, guys. We're going to watch it. Hello, Punani, Queen, and Cat B. Good to see ya. Casey Marie and my Carrie. We've got Shell and Mike Sanner. Hello, my buddy. They have the wrenches tonight. Betty, MCW. Good to see you. Lori M. Zinc Floyd. Pink Banjo. Hello. Jill Pill. And Diana says, I'm here, bitches. I'm here, bitches. Be a light. Hello. Ann's ASMR. What's up? Ann Chenoweth. All right, guys. Just as a quick reminder, we usually do our Patreons on Wednesday. We're going to be doing it on Thursday evening this week at 6 p.m. So, yeah, Pawpaw, Ro-Ro, I don't know.
Pawpaw.
Who's Pawpaw?
Ro-Ro. Who was Ro-Ro?
Who was Ro-Ro? Raylene, hello to Colorado. D's Boots. Bonjour, Nancy. Hello, Nikki Garcia. Nikki Garcia says, I hope he never gets out of prison. Hi, Jerry. Hey, Jaybird. Hey, Johnny Cuddy. All right, guys. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at the Kohberger first. Because it's like all these motions going back and forth, and it's like, all right, now the prosecution has trumped the Kohberger with a death penalty. It says, comes now the state of Idaho by and through Latah County prosecuting attorney. And you know what? Let's go over to the boob tube. How about that? Cash me over at the boob tube? How about that? Hello, Peaky, and everybody just coming in. Lisa M. Good evening. It's good to see all of you guys. If you're the replay crew, good evening to you as well. But we're going to go over the Kohberger docs right meow. Hi, Miss Potts. Miss Potts, are you beside yourself with this latest filing? Comes now the state of Idaho by and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney and hereby gives notice to the court, the defendant, and his counsel that as of this point in time and based on the information known to the state to date, the following statutory aggravating circumstances appear to exist in this case as to crimes of murder in the first degree as charged in counts 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the indictment. Number 1, at the time the murder was committed, the defendant also committed another murder and or the murder was especially heinous, atrocious, or cruel, manifesting exceptional depravity. Or by the murder or circumstances surrounding its commission, the defendant exhibited utter disregard for human life and or the murder was committed in the perpetration of or attempt to perpetrate arson, rape, robbery, burglary, kidnapping, or mayhem. The defendant killed, intended a killing, or acted with reckless indifference for human life and or the defendant by his conduct, whether such conduct was before, during, or after the commission of the murder at hand, has exhibited a propensity to commit murder, which will probably constitute a continuing threat to society. The state gives this notice based on the fact that it has not identified or been provided with any mitigating circumstances sufficient to prohibit the triers of fact from considering all penalties authorized by the Idaho legislature, including the possibility of a capital sentence. Consequently, considering all evidence currently known to the state is compelled to file this notice of intent to seek the death penalty. The state will continue to review additional information as it is received and reserves its statutory right to amend or withdraw this notice. Respectfully submitted this 26th day of June, 2023, signed by William Thompson. So, that's that. I mean, we kind of expected this. But it's now official. So Bryan Kohberger's attorneys were served a copy of this via email today. So I don't know. What are you guys thinking about this? We've been waiting for this dude to be exonerated. We've been waiting for him to have an alibi. He's got some killer alibi, no pun intended. But what's going on with all that, you know? So do you guys, let's do a poll. Let's do a quick poll. And if you would like to send a tip to the stream, you can do it with www.j4j411.live. That site is back up. Headphones. Oh my gosh, it's my headphones. Hello, headphones. Hello, Brandy Wine. Okay, Miss Potts says, I think this is their way of taking the attention off the lack of evidence and to take attention away from the 3 unknown males' DNA found near the victims that Ellie seemingly ignored, in my opinion. Miss Potts, you crack me up. They're very, yes, Bonjour Nancy says the state is very confident in their case. I don't think that they would take a move like this in order to sweep not having evidence under the rug. That seems to defy logic. Because if anything, this is going to make them have to really prove their case even more. Not the opposite. Hi, Northern Light. Peaky. All right, let's do our poll. Let's do it. I know, Miss Potts, I know. I adore you as well, but I think you're wrong in this case. Okay. What was the polling question we were going to do? What do you want me to ask? Do you think the state has a strong case? There's the first question. Do you think the state has a strong case? I don't think cops are ever going, look at you guys voting. I don't think the cops are ever going to forget about DNA. I think anytime there's multiple DNA found at a crime scene, they're going to test it all. They're not just going to go, oh, well, we've got Bryan Kohberger, so that's all we need. Hello, Anna. Good to see ya. Mike Sanner, I saw something either yesterday or this morning that prosecution was going to talk to the parents of the victims about the death penalty choice. Apparently it was good with them. Oh, wow. I knew that there was going to, there was some that maybe were on the fence, but it's nice to know that it looks like they all came to agreeance. Maybe. I mean, we don't know that for certain, but I know that Gonsalves said out loud, like, they wanted the death penalty. And I feel like they got their ducks in a row to, like, file a lawsuit if things weren't done correctly. Proving Spooky says, I don't think the other DNA is that important. It really depends on where it was found. His DNA was on the sheath button under the victim's body. And did you notice, too, that he also said that the sheath was placed there? That it was placed, not that it was anything else, but placed there. Which I found interesting because placed there means he's insinuating that the cops left it there. Trying to get where I can pin your messages. I know that the investigation went very deep. I would have to think so as well. I would have to think so as well. Suzanne says, I think the defense hopes they will forget about the DNA. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. Unfortunately. Defense is grasping at straws. Hi, Jenny W. Good to see you. So let's see. 75% of you think that the state has a strong case, and 25% of you say no, they don't. And we've only got 68 votes in. Get your votes in now. We just started. We just went over Bryan Kohberger getting the death penalty. We just went over the document. And I want to know what you think. I don't think that the state would file a death penalty, would seek the death penalty if they were scraping for evidence. I think that's silly. I think that's silly. Proving Spooky says, I think it fell off Bryan, but who knows? He scrubbed that thing because only one cell was on it. Now, do you guys remember, though, in the very beginning, that there was a guy who came out and said that he had sold Bryan Kohberger a knife and that it was that someone else was in the car with him? Do you guys recall that? I came across that Facebook post again. There was a guy on Facebook who stated that he sold Bryan Kohberger a knife and he had someone in the car with him. And I'm wondering if Kohberger isn't going to try to use that as a reason that his DNA was on there. Like, hey, I was with this dude and he bought a knife and I touched it. The defense is the one who wants the raw data on the DNA, and the state is refusing to give it up, says Miss Potts. I don't think they're necessarily refusing to give it up, but they don't have to do a mini trial with Bryan just because he wants one. He may want a mini trial because he wants to know everything they have. But I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't think that they necessarily have to give him everything. That's what the trial's for. If we were going to give everything and explain it all through how we came to this conclusion that we have our suspect, then what's the point of a trial? Sandy Smith in all caps. Hi, Jay. I'm so happy that Bryan is getting the death penalty. Jerry, what about the other male DNA at the scene? They said 3, but I'm shocked it isn't 100. I feel like maybe the DNA is from the boyfriends that were maybe in the room, in the beds.
You're
right?
awesome.
Like Dave Dombrowski. Thank you for subscribing, Dave. Yeah, he did. He actually said that he sold Bryan this knife and that someone was with him. Right. They have to share all of the discovery. Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure about the whole ruling out of the DNA though. I don't know. Like, do they have, if it didn't go along with the investigation into Bryan Kohberger, do they have to show that? That's my question. I just wonder how long it's going to take before Bryan Kohberger is backed into a corner and he either pulls a BTK and confesses all the way, or he takes a plea and doesn't say shit. He's going to feel backed into a corner at some time. Diana says they're only considering DNA close to the deceased. So, okay, so let me ask you guys this. If they're processing a scene and you have two deceased in a bed and you process that bed and you process the other bed upstairs and there's other DNA and it's people you've already ruled out. So, for example, thank you for subscribing, Sandy Smith. I appreciate you. For example, you've got whatever Maddie's boyfriend's name was, DNA possibly on her comforter. You've got, or her sheets, whatever. Jack D possibly has DNA in Kaylee's room or in her bed. Ethan's DNA would be in the house. So I think that could be your three, or possibly Adam. We know that the friend Adam, who was probably questioned extensively as well, being that he had been in the house recently. We saw the TikTok of him playing with Murphy. It could be their friends and they ruled them out. They were going to rule out Jack D before they even knew who Bryan Kohberger was. They're going to start with the people on the inside and then move out. Daisy dead. Death penalty has been said since the beginning. Why is everyone acting like this is their first day here? I'm confused. I really don't know. I mean, it was like everyone was saying breaking news, breaking news. I guess because they finally did it. I kind of expected it as well, Daisy. I kind of feel like you. Like, I figured this was coming. I mean, it's a quadruple homicide. So it just kind of makes sense that they would do that. Let's switch up the poll. I want to ask you guys if you think he'll plead out. That's our next question. Miss Potts, Banfield said her sources told her E's bestie took pulses. Maybe he's one of the three unknowns. I'm going to spell his name like Ann Taylor did. I think he's got a lot of games to play before he pleads out. Just Joe. I love that hashtag, Just Joe. Too many people are watching right now. He will play hashtag Sussburger with everyone as long as he can. I agree. He hasn't said anything, and there's no filings following this. This is the latest filing. Tomorrow, you guys, there's going to be a hearing tomorrow, and I'm not going to be streaming it until later. We'll get it as a file later. So I'm going to be busy tomorrow and Wednesday, just so you guys know. Nothing's wrong. I have a friend that I'm going to be visiting with. So we will catch up on the Kohberger hearing when I'm back streaming. So let's take a look at, I'm going to give you guys a little background. We're going to move into the Newton, Massachusetts. In Newton, Massachusetts, Saturday night, a man broke into an elderly person's house, a couple who was getting ready to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Their 50th anniversary, golden anniversary, and they were brutally murdered. Along with the woman, the wife her 90-some-year-old mother. This is horrific, you guys. I view the elderly like I view our children. And this is horrific. He broke in through the window. His name is Christopher Ferguson. Christopher Ferguson. Let me show you. I couldn't find his picture. They hadn't released his mugshot before I went live, but let me show you his house. This is where this shitbag lives, or lived. He doesn't live there anymore because he's in jail. But this is that shitbag's house. He lives in Newton, Massachusetts, in this apartment building here. I think there's about 9 apartments in here. But that's where this shitbag Christopher Ferguson lives. Innocent until proven guilty? No. He killed 3 elderly people. He's in jail. All right, let's watch the DA's update. They rocked and rolled getting this guy too.
Donahue, the Massachusetts State Police, our Chief of Homicide, Adrian Lynch, Superintendent George McMains of the Newton Police Department, and Susan Albright, the President of the Newton City Council. We are joined as well by Councilors Mark Laredo and Emily Norton.
They got him, Lisa.
As many of you recall, a little less than 24 hours ago, we were here to relate to you some of the events that had taken place, the tragic death of 3 individuals on Broadway in the city of Newton yesterday. At that point, we were asking for the public's help, and we were also cautioning people to be very vigilant given the safety risk that existed. Today, I am back to tell you that just a few minutes ago, we were able to place under arrest an individual named Christopher Ferguson, age 41, from Newton. Mr. Ferguson is right now charged with murder, 2 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon causing serious bodily injury, and burglary in connection with the incident that occurred yesterday. I'm going to talk a little bit about the charges. I'm then going to give you an overview of some of the facts, and then I'll be happy to take a few questions. We know that the individuals in that home on Broadway yesterday are one was Gilda Demore, who was 73 years old, who lived in that home. The autopsy has already been conducted on Mrs. Demore. The medical examiner has ruled her death to be a homicide, and a positive identification has been made of her. That is why Mr. Ferguson is charged with just 1 count of murder so far. The autopsies on individuals that we believe to be Bruno Demore, age 74, the husband of Gilda Demore, and Mrs. Demore's mother, Lucia Apino, who's age 97, we expect to be conducted tomorrow. It is my expectation that following those additional autopsies, Mr. Ferguson will face additional charges for the other individuals. As we discussed yesterday, what we know so far is that about 10:14 yesterday morning, Newton police received a call after a close friend and neighbor of the Demores had entered the house on Broadway in Newton. She was concerned because yesterday morning, the couple was scheduled to renew their wedding vows on the occasion of their 50th anniversary at Our Lady's Church. When they did not arrive for the service and the other family members had already gathered, the friend went back to the house to find out where they were and what was delaying them. She entered the house and found those 3 residents with obviously suffering from severe injuries. She immediately called 911, who responded, and the individuals were pronounced dead at the house at 10:20 yesterday morning. All 3 have suffered from apparent knife injuries and blunt force trauma. We know that Mrs. Demore suffered over 30 both stab and blunt force trauma injuries, primarily to the upper part of her body and head. We'll have more information as to the injuries inflicted on the others tomorrow. There were obvious signs of struggle in one of the bedrooms of the home, including broken furniture and a crystal paperweight covered in blood. We also found in the kitchen a knife with red-brown stains. Police further discovered evidence of a forced entry in the basement. One of the windows were open, and a number of the other windows had had the screens pried off and removed from them. The door of the garage, which was in the back part of the house, was also open, and close to that door was one of the screens that had been torn from a basement window.
He went in
Forensic
through the
specialists
basement.
processed the floor outside of the bedroom where the struggle
Listen
had
to
taken
this.
place. The surface of that floor was a ceramic tile. They processed that floor with leucocrystal violet, a chemical referred to as LVC.
Listen.
That enhances the visibility of non-visible occult blood. They were able, having done that, to find bloody bare footprints on that tile hallway floor.
Oh, whoops.
Like fingerprints, the skin of people's feet is unique and leaves an impression that can be compared as well. So they were able to gather a number of those footprints yesterday. They also observed, and as part of the continuing, we do not have the results yet because of ongoing testing, blood stains, passive droplets, consistent with blood dripping from an object near those footprints. And they also were able to recover what we hope will be a number of fingerprints that can be matched from the screens and the windows that were removed. Police immediately began a canvass for video in that area. They were able to obtain a video from the area of 455 Albemarle Road, which is about 4/10 of a mile from the house on Broadway.
What's the motive?
And it's about 100 yards from what we believe to be the home of Mr. Ferguson on Washington Street. That video shows that at about 5:20 a.m. yesterday morning, Sunday morning, the 25th, a male with no shirt and no shoes was walking with what appeared to be a staggering gait. Several officers, when shown that video, were able to make an identification of the individual depicted on the video as Mr. Ferguson, who was known to them.
Wow. Known to
They
them.
continued with that investigation and ultimately were able to focus on Mr. Ferguson as we began continuing to gather that information. Late this afternoon, the lab was able to match one of those footprints taken from the tile hallway floor to an impression taken from Mr. Ferguson. That is what
Ooh.
led to obtain.
Okay, so they got an impression of his foot already. They really zeroed in on him quick. So he was barefooted, left a barefooted footprint, and they matched it to his foot. So my question is, going back to Idaho, there was that footprint. Did it match the size 13 Nikes that they took from Bryan Kohberger's house in Pennsylvania? This is Massachusetts, Newton, Massachusetts.
Warrant for him. What I've described to you is a short summary of what has really been tireless work by both the Newton Police Department, State Police, and our DAs who work in our homicide unit in this office. I think none of us who were here yesterday, who heard about the family gathering at the church waiting to celebrate a very joyous occasion, having beloved family members not show up, then learning about the deaths, did not have a sense of the great tragedy and loss that occurred. And this kind of work, this kind of really dogged gathering of evidence and processing in this short a period of time in an attempt both to determine what happened to these family members and also to restore a sense of safety to the members of the community who yesterday we could not make that same assurance to, has led to the charges this afternoon. So I want to give great credit to all of the individuals who worked since yesterday, and particularly to the Massachusetts State Police Forensic Crime Lab, who did the processing of that evidence. As I indicated, it is my expectation that tomorrow we will have additional information regarding the injuries sustained by the other victims. I do anticipate additional charges. At this time,
isn't over
we
yet.
know of no established connection between the family members and Mr. Ferguson. And I also point out that although
You know what was interesting, just to interrupt for a second, is that when I Googled this guy's name, there's an actual Ferguson like remodeling company in that town. I don't know if it's related or not, but I wonder if they did work in this elderly people's house. Maybe.
Is incredibly grateful for the support they have received from this community, which has been their home all of their lives. They are asking for privacy in these difficult days as they deal with the news of what has happened and prepare burial services for their family members. I want to thank the members of this community who showed great patience in the aftermath of this incident as we work to determine what had happened. We're also very thankful to the residents of both the Nonantum and Newtonville neighborhoods
She is,
who
Brad.
spoke freely and were incredibly helpful to the investigators, both in terms of the work that was being done yesterday in a very hot and stormy day, and who also were useful in checking all of the video that they might have had and making available to us video that had been gathered. This was a careful, thoughtful, and relentless investigation, and it required the collaboration of multiple agencies.
All right.
Typically, when we are in a situation where we are responding to this kind of tragedy, we are also joined by Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller. Although she cannot be here in person, she did ask that I convey, again, both her sympathy to the family,
mayor couldn't be there,
as well as her gratitude to the community.
What's the mayor of
for
Newton
once
doing?
again coming
Newtown,
together and
Newtown.
helping us in dealing
Newton.
with this situation,
Newton's
and as
Apple.
well as express the great pride she has in the public safety agencies here who accomplished this work in such a short period of time. I am going to turn it over to the chief to talk a little bit
All
about
right,
the
here's the
police
chief.
response. We'll then hear from President Albright, and then I'll be happy to take a few questions.
All right, here's the chief of police, guys.
Thank you.
He's tall.
Good evening, everybody. My name's John Carmichael. I'm the police chief of the Newton Police Department. I just want to say that on behalf of the Newton Police Department and on all of us here tonight, as well as Mayor Fuller, who, as mentioned, couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, that we send our sincere condolences to the family. And we're very happy that tonight we're here to report that we will be able to seek justice for these victims. I believe that our neighborhoods are safer tonight here in Newton because of the hard work and dedication that has been exhibited by members of the Newton Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, as well as the Massachusetts State Police. This was an incredible show of collaboration and partnership that reached a very successful conclusion, which I think that we're all very happy about. As the DA mentioned, this was a very collaborative effort between multiple agencies as well as our...
All right.
So I just want to say on behalf of the City Council and all the residents of Newton that we represent, that our hearts go out to the victims and their families especially. And suffering from a crime like this is horrible, especially at a time when they were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. I also want to thank all those in law enforcement that brought this to a hasty conclusion. This is really excellent for the citizens of Newton, especially those in the Nonantum and Newtonville area that are so worried about this event. So I thank you, District Attorney Marion Ryan and Chief Carmichael and all the rest who participated.
All right, let's go to the questions.
The investigation, but take a few questions.
Do you think he randomly targeted this home to commit a burglary?
We have no information that gives us any reason to think otherwise at this point. Obviously, we are less than 48 hours into the investigation, but right now we do not have any reason to think that it was not a random event.
Could have picked any home, but just this one.
Right.
Does Mr. Ferguson have a history of mental health issues at all?
We'll hear a little bit more about that either tomorrow or on Wednesday when he's
I think this
arraigned.
guy's got a
Can you explain
pass.
at all how
One at a time. Go ahead, finish.
When was he taken into custody?
He was arrested about a half an hour ago.
And he was out before then?
He was hospitalized when he was placed under arrest.
Can you explain how police knew him, any part of his history at all?
Really part of the neighborhood. Somebody went to high school with him. You know, Newton is a very close town. People tend to stay. It's a great community. People tend to stay here. Many people knew him just from the community.
So again, no idea on motive. We don't know why he entered the home, but he
was charged with burglary. Did he try to take something?
That's something that's still part of the investigation, obviously, and since yesterday, our focus has been, first of all, gathering the evidence, determining the cause of death, and attempting to, ease the
So
public
no motive
safety
yet.
concern.
And how long has he been in the hospital?
I believe a day and a half or so.
Will
Yeah,
he make an
yeah.
appearance in court? Will he be in court tomorrow?
I don't know. He will be in court either tomorrow or Wednesday. I just don't know that. He was
We'll
just
cover it.
arrested a little while ago. I just don't know that. We'll get out information once we know that, when he'll be there.
And yesterday you were talking about a possible attempt to break in down
Yes.
the road. Is he connected with that at all?
We still don't know that. Right now, we still don't know whether that is a random coincidence or they are connected. All right, but that did happen it happened, our understanding is, about 5:45 yesterday morning. It wasn't reported to the police till about 6:47.
I thought he was in the hospital,
Was he
though.
first identified by the police as a suspect when that video that you were talking about, the neighbor's video, came out, or was he on your radar before?
There was nothing illegal about being present and walking on that video. So obviously, we were looking at everybody who was in the area during the early morning hours. That was just another person who had attracted our attention as being out there. As we did a canvass of the neighborhood and we're gathering video, there obviously are lots of people who are out and about in the neighborhood.
At 5 in
In
the
some
morning?
respects, it is a process of elimination. Someone might be walking
How many people are out and about at 5 in the morning?
dog, someone might be delivering a newspaper, all of those things.
I guess those
people are persons of interest at that point, and then we continue to gather information. This afternoon, we got confirmation from the lab about the identification of the footprint.
Of drugs at the scene or
Drugs.
at his home?
We have no evidence of drugs at the scene.
And what's your
At
message?
the scene. This guy's probably on drugs. He was probably going to steal for drugs.
Neighborhood tonight. I know last night you were saying lock your doors and windows. Can they breathe a sigh of relief tonight?
I think it is always good to be vigilant. Newton is a very safe city. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be vigilant. In particularly that in time of the year when people have doors and windows open and air conditioners are going, you should always have a level of vigilance. I would say we are certainly in a much safer situation than we were last night. And my message, as I've mentioned, is also one of gratitude. People were incredibly gracious and caring towards the family who had suffered that loss, to our
I hope so.
investigators who were out there, and they very, very frankly spoke with people about things they had seen in the days and weeks leading up to this, shared their video, and really helped us to get to the point that we are at. So I'm grateful to the media as well. You all
The
stayed
media.
with us all for a very long day yesterday, came here late last night when we were not at a conclusion, when it really was critical to get that information out as people were going to bed, that we needed to be very careful. You helped us to get that message out. We know it had that effect, so I'm very grateful about that. And it is always continued interest in being about that helps us to get more information. It prompts that.
Did the knife come from the Zamores' home or did he bring it?
That's part of the investigation.
Okay, did anybody call you in the days leading up to this to make any concerned calls about Ferguson? Anybody?
Not about that, no. Or that neighborhood, no.
Has he been cooperative or admitted to what he's done?
That's all part of what we'll be talking about at the arraignment.
Have you spoken with any family members of him?
All part of the arraignment, sorry, all part of the arraignment. Anybody else? All right, thank you. Thank you all for staying with us.
All right. Well, I think that was a great press conference myself. We'll find out more in the next day or two, and we'll definitely keep our eye on this one. Chris Ferguson, though, dare we do a quick Google search of Chris Ferguson, Newton, Massachusetts, and see what we come up with. It says here on Fox News that the suspect was seen acting strange, barely clothed, the morning he stabbed a victim 30 times, which we just heard. This is Chris Ferguson right here. Here's a picture. Chris Ferguson, 41, was arrested and facing several charges in connection with the June 25th triple homicide in Newton, Massachusetts. Ferguson, who's known to police, it says, was seen on surveillance staggering in the area with no shoes and no shirt at 5:20. Let's see what it says about him being known to police. Nothing. So this couple didn't show up at church, and that's what prompted people to look for them, to check on them. And there's the scene right there. But this shitbag should never see the light of day again. Ever. There's another look at the house. So he went and checked himself into a hospital, it sounds like, and that's where he was arrested. Again, here is the perp. Chris Ferguson, age 41. He had to be high. Had to be. I agree with you, Heathen. So, yeah, senseless. Just senseless. All right, our final story is a doozy, guys. This is a doozy. Doozy. I know, everything's drug-related anymore. It's too much. You guys, Sheriff Grady Judd arrested 3 generations of the Rogers family today. The Rogers. And he refers to the dad as Pop Rogers. This is disturbing. And this is a huge deal. They've been doing this investigation since 2020. Are you guys ready for this? The Rogers family. You can't make it up. Hello, Leo Tech. Good evening, sweetheart. And here is our favorite sheriff, Grady Judd.
Outside the city of Winter Haven. But it's a family affair. It's a generational event. We have 3 generations of Rogers who are actively involved in the trafficking and sale of drugs. Now, I continue to hear over and over this false narrative that they're trying to push all across this country, that drugs are low-level, non-violent events, okay? Low-level, non-violent drugs. Well, I think you'll understand that it's not just a low-level, non-violent drug. So, it culminated with a search warrant. These folks aren't new to us. The Rogers family has been around for decades. Now think about it. Either we began this investigation on November of last year, or we began it 30 years ago. That's right.
30 years ago. I was
37th Street, same area of Inwood, same houses. We have been putting these people in jail and some of them in prison for 3 generations. And they continue to sell drugs. In fact, I'm going to introduce you to at least one of them that we arrested in a major league trafficking wire investigation, wiretap, in 2020 that hasn't even been a trial yet, and I'm going to give you details how we are arresting them once again.
The dude hasn't even been to
But as we
trial,
go
and he's
through
arrested
this,
again.
It is important for you to understand that these folks have created death and destruction for many, many families for a very long time. When we did the search warrants, we seized on that particular day 3 pounds of meth, 224 grams of fentanyl. Now, folks, 224 grams of fentanyl is potentially enough to overdose and kill 95,000 people. Did you hear what I said? 95,000 people. We also seized a kilo of cocaine, almost a kilo of MDMA, oxycodone, a 9mm handgun. Imagine a convicted felon with a handgun, right? I mean, that's not anything new to most of you. And a pill press. Where's our pill press? It's supposed to be here. Do we have it someplace?
They had a pill press.
Y'all didn't bring it here?
19-year-old using it.
Okay. So I want you to see the pill press or pictures of the pill press. That's right. They are so sophisticated that some of them are pressing the pills themselves. So you can get it either cocaine, they'll make it into crack cocaine, they'll press it into pills, however you want it. It's interesting that we first start off to talk about the patriarch of the family, Hodiah. Hodiah Rogers is 69 years of age.
The grandpa.
And as I said before, he started his crime career 30 years ago with an aggravated battery arrest. He, over the years, has accumulated 14 felony arrests, 6 misdemeanor arrests. He's been to prison 1 time, and yes, we served a search warrant at his house, one of the 3 search warrants, where we seized more drugs, and he is still in prison. He's not made bond. Then there's his girlfriend, Teresa Prince. She's 59.
Yikes.
That's Hodiah's girlfriend. She distributes drugs for Hodiah. She didn't think it was any big deal. She went to jail. Now, she has bonded out. She's the only one that has bonded out. Then there's Pop Rogers, Kenneth. Kenneth Rogers is 38 years of age.
When I heard that, I about shit. I was like, did I just hear what I thought I heard? Pop Rogers.
That has bonded out. Then there's Pop Rogers, Kenneth. Kenneth Rogers is 38 years of age. He's one of the sons of Hodiah, and he's kind of now taken over the head of the organization. He's had a crime spree for the last 24 years. His first arrest was in 1999, and it was a simple arrest for shoplifting. He is the one that was arrested as a major trafficker in 2020 when we instituted a wire investigation, or a telephone wiretap as we know them. We arrested him then, and he bonded out. He's not been to trial yet on that 2020 arrest. So in 2023, April, guess what? While he's out on bond, while he has stipulations, we arrest him for possession of cocaine with intent to sell within 1,000 foot of a park. And he's got $21,000 in his pocket.
Oh my God.
So he's facing major league time for a trafficking case. He makes bond. He continues on his criminal enterprise. And he's already been to prison 4 times. Jesus. So here's another clear indication. If you don't keep people like Pop Rogers locked up,
He said it again.
he's going to be selling drugs to your kids, to your neighbors, to your relatives.
Oh,
And then there's
boy.
Raphael Rogers, another son of Hodiah. When I tell you it's a family affair, I'm not kidding.
Buy headphones.
They're all in business together. Illegal business. 24 years of crime himself. He's 39 years old. And he started out with a simple shoplifting charge. He's amassed 43 felony arrests, 33 misdemeanor arrests. He's been to prison 2 times, and this was the second search warrant served at his house.
In the name of
Raphael
Jesus, Father God,
is a
Lord.
bad guy.
He is a bad guy.
And then there's Tamika Rogers. She's 31. She's the daughter of Hodiah. She's got 5 felony arrests, 3 misdemeanors. She's never been to prison. She's currently living with Hodiah, where one of the search warrants was served, and she's known to sell drugs.
Whose head? Potts?
And then there's Dominique Rogers. He's 28, Hodiah's son. He's younger than the others. He's got 38 felony arrests, 14 misdemeanor arrests. He's been to prison 1 time. But that's not all. Manatee County currently has him charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder where things went bad during a narcotics transaction.
What?
So not only does he have that occurring, but while he did that, he's also under investigation with us for providing fentanyl that created the death of a 19-year-old girl.
What?
A teenager, a victim. Now I want you to think about that for a second, if you will. This guy had 38 previous felony arrests, 14 misdemeanors. He's been to prison. He and his family sell drugs. We are already investigating him and waiting for the lab analysis and the work to come back to tie him to a 19-year-old that overdosed from fentanyl that he or the family sold. And he gets charged with 2 murders in the meantime. Now let me go over this again. Who thinks this is low-level, nonviolent crime? If you perpetuate that position, you're just a nut. You're crazy. You're out of your mind. Drugs are not low-level, nonviolent crimes. They never have been.
Wake up.
But we've got people running across this nation, some well-meaning people, suggesting that it's really not that big a deal. It's not violent.
Who's saying
It's
that?
not. You show me drugs, I'll show you guns and dead people every time. And you know, you may not think it's a big deal. You may think it's a low-level nonviolent
I don't.
event,
It's a big deal,
a
Grady.
low-level nonviolent crime that doesn't need attention until it's your child that's dead. Think about that. Think about if you were the parents of this 19-year-old girl who died from this fentanyl overdose, or if you were the family of these 2 people that Dominic Rogers shot and killed. Think about that. So the next time anyone, whether on social media or mainstream media, wants to tell you that it's really not all that bad, you can suggest to them, are you a nut? Here's the 3rd generation, Jordan Rogers. He's the grandson of Odiah. He's 21. Up until this search warrant, Jordan only had 1 previous arrest for fleeing to elude, and that was dropped. So while he's lived in and around this crime spree, this ongoing crime spree for his entire life, he was never at least caught up in it criminally until the search warrant was served and we caught him with a litany of drugs. But if you look at Jordan and his entrance into the drug world and the crime world at his age, and then you overlay it to his parents, to his dad, who was Raphael, and then you overlay it to Odiah, who's his granddad, he's following the same pattern. He's living what he's learned at home his entire life. And that's sad. And he's the one that had the pill press where he was. And we believe he's the one that was pressing the pills into all kinds of drugs.
The neighbors
The
are
3rd
scared.
generation. So dad, granddad
Papa.
have taught him the business well. I'd like to point out that Teresa was released. I also have some juveniles here. 1 was charged with misdemeanor, 2 with felonies. I suggest to you that these juveniles who aren't blood relative that we can determine at this stage of the investigation, but are there living in this environment, that's also the next generation.
Operation Family Affair.
And when we arrested them and sent them to juvenile, they didn't score out enough to stay in lockup.
Oh, great.
So the system has helped perpetuate this problem with its lack of attention to the juveniles, because they've already
that one
figured
guy's
out
name
with
Wells?
this arrest, whoa, they're not going to keep me locked up for this.
The Rogers family.
Until one day we do, for a long time, for second-degree murder maybe one day, or fentanyl overdose deaths where you kill someone one day. I've also left out a couple of the other guys. They are part of the trafficking organization, but they're not the family. These guys here, they're trafficking in the drugs, but they're not related by blood. This family affair, this Rogers family affair, has been alive and well for a long time. They've been in and out of jail numerous times, and as
I want to know whose kids were living with them. Where's the parents of the kids that were living with these in this drug house?
They've been to prison as well. So when's enough? When's the system going to say it's time that we take these people out? Now, as a side note, when we served this search warrant, we were assisted by the Lakeland Police Department and the Highlands County Sheriff's Office SWAT teams. Very professional SWAT teams that assisted us, because we wanted a SWAT team on each house to keep the violence down. We were able to execute the search warrants. No one was injured. The appropriate people were arrested. And the neighborhood continued to thank us for our work. Now, they're scared of the Rogers. What I've talked about is their criminal arrest and when they've gone to jail. I've not talked about all the intimidation they've done in the neighborhood.
Okay, so he's talking about their neighbors being scared, but I'm really concerned. Miss Potts says where there's drug trafficking, there's also sex trafficking. It concerns me there are non-related juveniles in a known home for trafficking. I agree with you, and a female no less. So we don't know if he said they're not family, so they may not even be cousins. That's a whole nother issue, isn't it? Sick.
I've not talked about one of the very few unsolved homicides we have in this county that's on 40th Street, 3 streets over, that I believe in my heart and soul they got a part of that some way. But do you think anybody's going to talk to us?
No.
With the Rogers family right there? No, because they're afraid that they may be the next one that's killed. So at the end of the day, know this, that once again we've arrested the Rogers family. This time we've arrested all 3 generations at one time.
The Rogers? Yeah.
But the Rogers and everyone else should understand that we're going to continue to arrest you. And arrest you.
And arrest you.
My narcotics and organized crime folks that work this investigation are simply the very best. And they've done a remarkable amount of work this time in order to do this very complex investigation and bring its culmination together last Thursday. Are there any questions?
Sheriff, would you be able to talk, maybe briefly, but just about the trends you're seeing with fentanyl in the county?
Sure.
The last couple years?
Here's what I know about fentanyl. Fentanyl is coming across the southern border, through the porous border, where there's a crisis. And they're bringing that fentanyl into the United States, and to include the United States, every state, and every county, I suggest, in every state. And we see the fentanyl deaths in waves. So we know when there's another wave of fentanyl that hits, because the market's here, they've distributed it, some die. Then it calms down, maybe calms down for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then we see some more fentanyl or drug-related deaths. Look, this fentanyl's killing thousands upon thousands of people across this country. It is unbelievable. Cocaine, methamphetamine kills you normally over years. We start seeing people at 40, 45, 50, where they've just wore out their body, die from these other drugs. How fast does fentanyl kill you?
Fast.
Like that.
Like that.
One time. And they're mixing it. We see it mixed with cocaine, we see it mixed with methamphetamine, we see it mixed with heroin, we've seen it sprinkled on our cannabis, you know, that non-dangerous drug cannabis. We've actually seen fentanyl and other drugs spread on it as well.
Okay, keep the fentanyl off the pot. Why would they put fentanyl on pot? In other words, to like get you to buy more? What would be the point in sprinkling fentanyl on pot?
But fentanyl, unfortunately, is not regressing. It's increasing. We're seeing more and more fentanyl deaths over the last few years, not less.
Oh, yeah.
Is fentanyl more prevalent in Winter Haven? I remember a few months back there were 2 men arrested for a man who
Stop jammers!
and they were arrested because they sold him fentanyl.
Sure.
So is it more prevalent in Winter Haven?
No, it's not more prevalent. And I thank you for asking that question because, you know, sometimes I have people say, well, is there more prostitution in Polk County? Because you arrest prostitutes? And I go, no, because you investigate and you investigate with energy and enthusiasm and you seek out these criminals. It doesn't mean there's more of it. It means you're identifying it and taking them into custody. The same things with fentanyl and all of these drugs. I have organized crime teams that are focused on large-scale drug operations. I have narcotics units that do undercover work. I have street crimes units.
He's got it
that do
all,
street
folks.
Crimes, drugs. So we're going out to these communities because it's not just a drug problem. It's not just a death problem. It's quality of life problems in neighborhoods where people are complaining. They're up all night. They don't ever sleep. They keep me up all night. So we're fighting this drug at every level, and that's why you see this. I suggest to you that if you look across this state and across this nation, that we're in the grips. We're in the very grips of a drug disaster that people want to ignore and push back on. I can remember they didn't start recently, maybe in the early 2000s. Oh, it's not a war against drugs. Call it what you want, it's killing your kids. And then while they're trying to legalize more drugs in the country, we see more drugs killing more people. And fentanyl has come on the market with a vengeance, and it's all over the place, and it's pouring across our border from Mexico and then spreading through the entire United States.
Sounds like you're concerned that some of the
What's up,
younger
John?
ones are going to continue on the family business as they go on. Is there anything that can be done to sort of break the cycle so they can hopefully not continue on this operation?
You know, the sad part about it is, you know, you don't retrain kids that are 15, 16, 17, 18. You hope you get them to counseling and services, but that's their environment. As long as they go back to 37th Street and these guys aren't locked up, if your name's Rogers and you live in Inwood, in and around 37th Street, you're going to sell drugs. They're just going to do that just as sure as God made little green apples. They're going to sell drugs if they're not locked up. That's what they do.
Just as sure as God
and
made
they
little
do
green
it very
apples.
well.
I'm sorry, his sayings
And
crack
they're
me up.
making money and your kids are dying.
He's right, though.
And if you don't think that they won't shoot you, Dominique Rogers shot and killed 2 people in Manatee County. If you don't think they won't overdose you and kill you, as we're investigating now, they sure enough will.
$140,000
in the homes. How large of an operation do you consider that to be? Do you think there's more drugs elsewhere?
These are perennial street level dealers and low level traffickers. They never wanted or never had the ability to get up to the major stuff. But so the traffic, the flood of traffic in the community to buy these drugs are remarkable. They also deliver outside the community. So at the end of the day, that is their business model. And they are business people, make no mistake about it. They are absolutely business people and have been very successful for a long time.
A long time.
Obviously, they get locked up, they get released, they agree to sell drugs. What about the people on the drugs? Is there a need for treatment facilities or more resources for them?
Sure, locking them up does work. It's when they're not locked up that they're back selling drugs. The only way to keep these people from dealing drugs is to lock them up. But the people that have addictions to drugs absolutely need drug treatment. We provide drug treatment, not enough, but we provide it. I say we, the system. Does there need to be more of that? Yes, but I can tell you from decades of experience myself, if you send somebody to a drug treatment program and they don't want to be there, they're not in their heart ready to get away from the drug world,
it's not going to work.
Everybody's time.
Mm-hmm. I just watched
taxpayers' money.
I just watched a show last night where these parents, this girl was using cocaine, using meth. I think she was like 16 or something, and her mom found it. They were like a well-to-do family, and they spent $40,000 on rehab for this girl. And she relapsed right after getting out. And I was just like, oh my God, how do you spend $40,000 on a 90-day treatment and your kid gets out and just starts using right away again? It's like, oh my gosh.
They are a snapshot of the illegal business community that is causing death and a lesser quality of life for not just the people using the drugs, but for the communities around the people that use the drugs. And they don't care. As long as they get that green cash, they don't care.
Sheriff, do you find that you have been talking about this for a couple of years now, the awareness that it's not just a low-level, nonviolent crime. Do you find that the more that law enforcement is trying to get that message out there, are you getting any reaction from the community that, hey, you know what, you're right? Do you feel like people are coming around to that?
I think the reasonable community understands very well that this is not a low-level, nonviolent crime. But you all know, you're the ones that cover the research, covers the activists, covers the people that think us wasting time on drug enforcement when it could be used on something better. Y'all cover those folks. Those folks that presuppose and take false data on a false basis or false research and perpetuate that. You know, that's what frustrates me, because that leads some kid out here, leads some community members out here to go, huh, it's not that bad. It is that bad. It is that bad. And I'm not telling you from some academic study by some kid who needed to get his master's degree, that he did some kind of skewed little piece of work that somebody put in their local magazine that ended up in the news media. I'm telling you from decades of empirical evidence, drugs kill. Drugs ruin lives. Drugs ruin families. People who sell drugs have guns. People who have guns and drugs shoot and kill people. Fentanyl is a newer drug on the market that's popular now. It kills lots of people, thousands of people. Somebody watching some of these television broadcasts or social media broadcasts, you're going to have a loved one or friend die of fentanyl this year. I guarantee it. If they're using drugs and they're using fentanyl, someone watching this program will die this year. We have the pill press here. It's magic how that works.
They got the pill press.
And our folks will set it up. We got the captain, and they'll set it up.
That's the pill
They will
press?
show you how it works. It's quite a
I
sophisticated
pictured like
piece
a
of
little.
machinery.
I pictured like a little plastic like thing that
You know,
comes with
they
Play-Doh.
don't sell this at Walmart. At least not yet. You order it or you steal it.
They put the compounds of the drugs inside the machine, and basically it creates a tablet of whatever drug they put in there, and it can put whatever quantities of drug and that's what that produces there. And you can tell it's a very heavy piece of machinery, heavy duty, and you don't find these on any search warrant or drug investigation.
That's
They're very
scary.
highly sophisticated in what they're doing in the manufacture of these drugs that are killing families.
You know, we did an operation not long ago where they were pressing the pills, the fentanyl pills, to look like oxycodons, complete with a number on it. So people were thinking they were getting an oxycodone pill, and they were getting a fentanyl stamped pill, and some folks from that operation we learned had died as a result. I think we had 3 or 4 over in the west side, if memory serves me correct, were attached directly to, they thought they were getting one kind of pill commercially when it was bootleg stamped, and it was really fentanyl. I think 3 or 4 died from that operation. But there's a press. Y'all be safe. Have a good day. Thank you for covering this.
Thank you,
and
Grady.
somebody also will be alive because they'll take to heart what y'all do and say today.
Wow. This is major. Major stuff. Guys, that pill press, they're making their own lethal doses of fentanyl in their house with that machine. Why in the hell were these people like not in prison? Why were they let out and let out and let out and let out? I could hear Grady's frustration with that. He's like, maybe the system will keep them in prison this time, or we'll just keep arresting your ass. All right, our final story. I saw someone mention about a teenage girl that was rescued in Metro Atlanta from sex traffickers. Leo Tech, I love that. I know, like, God made little green apples. It is really sick. Yeah, Jammers, I thought the pill press was going to be like a little silicone tray, you know, like a little silicone, like, ice cube tray or like a little Play-Doh thing where you like press it down, the Fun Factory. All right, this is our final story, you guys. This is really, really disturbing. 9 people arrested or convicted in this.
Was rescued from a Metro Atlanta motel where police said that she was bought and sold for sex.
Tonight, 9 men are heading to prison, including the alleged predator who sold her to dozens of buyers. His name, Stephen Stone. A judge sentenced a 31-year-old man from Lithonia to 25 years. Only on
31 years old. 31, and he's trafficking a girl from like 100 miles away. And the problem is, they thought she was a runaway. So she wasn't being looked for because she was labeled as a runaway. Now, what I think needs to change is that if we have a 14, 15, even 16-year-old, and they run away, they should still be being looked for. They're still kids.
11 Alive, Cody Alcorn is speaking to the prosecutor leading the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Unit. Cody.
Jennifer Ron, the survivor in this case, a 17-year-old girl found 792 miles away from her home.
700 miles from her home. 700 miles. They're talking online, they're grooming them, and then they're leaving home.
Motel room in
Hi,
College
Rose.
Park. As soon as she was rescued, this unit got to work trying to track down every man who victimized this teenager. Operation Not Forgotten.
People would be shocked to know how many kids are missing all the time in the state of Georgia.
Not prosecutor Hannah Palmquist.
Chief of the Human Trafficking Unit of the Georgia Attorney General's Office.
Palmquist and her unit team up with the U.S. Marshals Missing Child Unit in the annual operation.
And it's in the course of that partnership that we located this missing child
inside a motel room.
Had been trafficked by multiple individuals, one after the other.
At the Travel Lodge off I-75 in College Park.
We identified Stephen Stone as the person who was selling her.
A 17-year-old labeled as a runaway from Missouri, sold for sex to these men over the course of several weeks. And these predators are just the ones who got caught.
Many more. Many more. We often see on these cases that a child is sold 5 to 10 times in one day.
To men who oftentimes go back to their families.
A lot of our buyers are married. A lot of our buyers have children. Some buyers even have children around the same age as their victims.
While these predators are off the streets for now, Palmquist knows.
There's between 1,000 and maybe up to 2,000 missing kids in the state at any given time.
Running from something.
That is just Georgia. 1,000 to 2,000 kids missing in this state at any given time.
At any given time.
Running from something.
It's always an offer to meet some need that the child isn't having met, and that's how they pull the child in.
Which is why she believes no child should be labeled a runaway.
And I think it's important that we...
And I think also we need to stop putting CPS and juvenile cases on Zoom and putting them on YouTube.
Not making that distinction, whether the child left voluntarily or not. They're still missing, they're still in danger, they're still very likely to be approached by a sex trafficker.
There is still one more suspect awaiting trial. I do want to point out this operation happened in 2020. It shows you how many hours, how many years goes into prosecuting these cases. As of tonight, the unit has 40 defendants under indictment for sex or labor trafficking.
Some eye-opening information tonight, Cody. Thank you so much.
40 indictments outstanding in Georgia right now in human trafficking. That is sick. Just sick stuff, you guys. It happens all over, and it's just scary. It's scary. We need to stop labeling, though, these kids as runaways. Just because they left on their own accord, they're still not old enough to make the decision to leave on their own accord. So why are we not looking at that? And Miss Potts, you finally said something that I agree with. Miss Potts said if you want to donate to an organization, consider donating to your local human trafficking organizations. The one that Grady Judd works with in Florida here, and Hillsborough County does as well. Polk County, I know in Hillsborough, they work with this, I think it's Sail Away or Sail Behind. I can't remember what it's called, but they have a very good platform of these women that talk to these girls, that leave information with them. If they don't want to talk right now, they will follow up with them and give them resources, and they try to get them to leave. But it's hard sometimes because they are so groomed. Oh, I love you too, Lisa. Shelly says, is this where the 30 kids went missing too? I don't know. Miss Potts, I knew we'd find common ground, Jay. Of course. You know what, Miss Potts? When it comes to the elderly and children, you and I are on the same page. And thank you for being respectful. Thank you guys all for being respectful tonight. Mike Sanders says, I get bulletins for 2 to 4 missing kids almost every week. Luckily, all are found in a few days, including one who was out of state willingly with some guy. Yeah, it's scary. Because they promise them things. So, like, that's why I say I don't like that the juvenile courts are on YouTube. Because you can watch and you can see, like, these kids come up for their hearing and they're like, okay, you know, John Smith. John Smith's mom's not here. Oh, they're like this, you know, this is the judge. Oh, John Smith was arrested. Oh, John Smith had possession of a gun. John Smith's mom's not even here for this hearing. So then someone who's bad would know who John Smith is. And then they might be able to find John Smith and convince him that he might want to come with me because, you know, mom and dad don't give a shit. So they play on that. Thanks, Daisy. Thanks, Shell. Thanks, Leo. And thanks, Jammers. Thanks, all you guys. The 30 kids was in Ohio, says Anna. Suzanne, since COVID happened and kids were staying home for school, this problem has exploded and DHHS has dropped the ball. I think there's just so much going on. I think that with these apps, they're so sneaky. And we have to be careful, too. Look at your kids' phones. Make sure they're not sharing their locations on Snapchat. Woohoo! Just Joe figured out the Patreon. Thank you for joining, Joe. We'll see you in Patreon this Thursday at 6 p.m. I cannot wait. We're going to be talking about Natalie Holloway this week. All right, you guys, that is a wrap. I won't see you tomorrow, but I will post and I'll keep in contact with you. I might share a picture of me and my friend, but I will see you guys back here for sure on Thursday if I don't see you before then. Oh, Miss Potts, I believe it. She said it would make you sick if you knew how many judges, lawyers, and cops or pedos work together to protect each other. It is sick. Lynn Moe, I couldn't have said it better myself. Evil exists, unfortunately. We have to protect ourselves and our children. Loaded hot. Start reporting it. You see it, report it. Have an amazing evening yourself. Leo Tech, good point. Also, there are many false DHS calls from revengeful people. Bye, Miss Potts. Bye, Zinc Floyd. We'll have to do more evening lives. I agree. I like them too. All right. We'll dance it out, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for watching, and thank you for your support.
I don't give a damn. I don't really care about you and your problems. I don't give a damn. You talk way too much. I have heard enough about you and your problems. I wanna find
I didn't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And I didn't want to see anybody else either.
What you are witnessing is real. The participants are not actors.
You're making plans to get to France, but don't wanna face the fact that I ain't got time, I ain't got time.
Guess he's gonna need extra slow in a second.
Sleeping all day, dreaming about kids. shoes, hanging by the pool.
So is that a joint? Or is it a cigar?
Bye, Jennifer.
I wanna fuck